Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Now today I want to talk to you about thyroid health. I want to talk to you about this gland in your throat, why it's hurting, what the symptoms are, and what you can typically do to feel better, to get it all balanced. Because the way I see health is all about the glands. It's all about going back to the cause. Now, first of all, it might not be exactly what you think it is, because this gland right here, there are two. So we have the thyroid and we have the parathyroid. They are not only physical, meaning they're not only affected by the physical. So we're not just talking about diet here, or we're definitely not talking about taking a supplement. What we're talking about is the emotional and the mental effect of our state, what that does with our thyroid. Now, if you start at one end saying, okay, so you come into this world, and why does some have low thyroids and some not, and some don't? Well, you can be born with a weakness, of course, from your mother and your father. Now, you can also be born with an impaired lymphatic system, meaning a stagnant lymphatic system, meaning a body that's already acidic when you come into this world. So if you have a weakness in your thyroid, parathyroid, and you have stagnant lymph that the kidneys are not filtering, then you can walk through life and keep on eating mucus-forming foods, acidic foods, and it will build up, and then it will hit you at your weakest link. So if your thyroid is your weakest link, then we're talking about weaknesses, then that will happen. Now, there are many ways that the thyroid can become a weakest link. Now, the connection to the emotional, I'll get back to the healing part of that, but first about what happens when you live through certain things that affects the thyroid. So if you're living not feeling that you're fully expressing your authentic self, and that's the key that we're going to look more into. Now, as a child, this will look something like having an abusive environment around you. And that might not even look like you think it's going to look like. It could be that there are high dominance in one of your parents. It could be that one of your parents are very critical, highly critical of you. Maybe there were a lot of boundaries, or maybe you didn't have any boundaries. You didn't even, nobody taught you how to set your own boundaries. So you're constantly trying to fit in. You're constantly trying to change something about you to fit in to what everybody else is expecting of you, or what they want it to be. Or maybe you see abuse around you and you have a lot of fear. Now that will go first and foremost to your kidneys and your adrenal, which will create a lot of anxiety, and that's another video. But the thyroid is pretty close up there, because you have to close off a part of yourself to fit in, if that's the environment that you've been living in. And believe me, so many of us have. It's not that you're even that special, sadly, if that's you, but it's good to know that that's a part of where this is coming from. Now, childhood is childhood, and once we grow up, we have to take full responsibility of that, but we tend to carry it with us. We have this backpack that we just keep putting little traumas and false beliefs and all these programmings right into the backpack, and it becomes heavier and heavier and heavier. So when you get into adulthood and you're still believing in those old patterns, you still believe that you need to do something to fit in, or that you might not be good enough, or that what you wanted wasn't cool enough or sexy enough, or didn't fit for anyone else. So you might have wanted to be a painter, but somebody told you can never live off of that. That will lead to poverty, or there could be something else that you wanted to do and somebody ridiculed you. Or it could be that you needed to shut up when you wanted to speak. It could be that nobody wanted to listen to you. So you just stopped speaking. You stopped expressing your authentic self, your authentic voice. So then what happens? Your thyroid is hurting. It's clogged up with a lot of mucus, because the mucus will go to where there's less, or like the least of movement, the least energetic flow. That makes sense, right? So we're talking stagnancy. See, every so-called illness in the body, every pain, it comes from lack of flow. It comes from a sort of constipation, lymphatic constipation, which, yes, in turn, it turns into a lot of other processes in the body. Say the thyroid gets low, so what happens? It doesn't create the hormones that it's supposed to do. There are a lot of things that are affected by that low thyroid. So yes, of course, you can measure the THC and you can do a lot of things. I mean, calcium absorption, calcium utilization, it all has to do with the thyroid and the parathyroid. Every tissue in the body, if it's weak, if you're looking at hernias, if you're looking at spider veins, it's the parathyroid. Now, how do you heal that? Like, how do you walk past that or through that? How do you embrace that and heal the real cause? Which obviously isn't the symptoms. The symptoms are never the cause. Now, the typical symptoms of a low thyroid would be overweight. It could be very low energy. It could be heart palpitations, Thyroid, the parathyroid could be osteoporosis, spider veins, like I said, hernias, sagging of skin. When you're experiencing this, your thyroid is showing you that it's not operating optimally. And we can go between hyper and hypo. Hyper meaning overactive, and that's when they often nuke our thyroid to just shut it off. That's when you can get into thyroid storms, meaning everything goes haywire. A hypothyroidism is the low kind, like everything goes on low. Depression. And depression also comes from the lack of calcium absorption. Now, can you imagine how acidic you would turn out if you went around with a low thyroid long enough? Because if you can't utilize and absorb calcium, meaning that's the largest base mineral, alkalizing mineral that the body has. Now, the blood needs to stay alkaline. So when you're looking at alkaline, acidic, and you want to eat alkalizing food and you don't want to go acidic and you think it's a blood thing or you think it's a urine thing or you think it's a salvia thing, saliva thing. I mean, it's not. It's a systemic, lymphatic, it's more of a tissue thing. It depends on how many acids are burning your cells. Now, the blood needs to stay alkaline, or if not, we die. So when it gets just a little, if the body's just sensing that there's too much acidity going on, it will buffer to make sure the blood has what it needs. So that's why it's drawing from the bones. It's drawing our alkaline minerals to make sure that we survive. The body goes from thriving to surviving very quickly. That's why it can survive on so many different diets, for a long time. Even with a lot of chemicals, for a long time. We're going to feel it, we're going to hurt, but it's going to survive. That's what it does. That's how freaking amazing it is. Okay, so the thyroid again. Now, what I see in my practice, working with clients, is this. When you start with diet, okay, just stopping the obvious, like what would you stop? I would stop anything mucus forming in my body. So that would be dairy first, obviously. Then I would stop all animal products. I would stop all grains. I would stop all processed food. I would literally just go back to basic. I would go back to natural food found in nature that made you feel good. That's always where you start. And that's the key or the gateway into you. And that's where the emotional comes into play. I never see healing happen without the cause being healed. And that's why a lot of people get scared, or they feel it's too much or overwhelming, but it isn't. It's freedom. It's freedom, because healing the thyroid is the same as saying you're going to live your authentic self from now on. You're healing your expression. You're healing the cause of why it's the way it is. And if you were born with a weak thyroid, then it's going to strengthen itself through your energetics, through your energy. If you have lived a life where you have been bombarding it with mucus forming food, it is going to clear up because you're going to stop that and you're going to allow the body to release all those toxins and all that mucus and all those parasites and all that fungus. If you have lived a life being emotionally abused, which a lot of people don't even know what that is, then that's going to heal and you're going to walk forward expressing who you really are in the way that you see fit, coming from your heart, not from the brain. It's not going to come from you being afraid of what other people think, what they say, what they mean. You're going to do it for you. And your life, your body's been waiting for this for your whole life. And that's the freedom. And the only sad thing that I see is that most people wait until middle age, until they wake up and they say, oh my God, my life, kind of went by and I really never expressed myself. And I think has a lot to do with you. You see a lot of middle-aged people, and it was very popular in the 80s. It was about finding yourself, or even back in the 70s. Oh, when you get a certain age, now I have to find myself. Because we feel lost when we're not expressing our true self. And it feels disempowering. And truthfully, we have given away a great part of our own power when we have not been expressing who we really are. So afraid of what other people are going to say. Don't give a shit as much. I mean, that's my biggest advice. If you come to me as a client with a thyroid issue, the first thing I'll tell you is, don't give a damn as much. Try to just step out of everything and observe. And don't worry about what other people think of you. What do you want? So ask yourself, if you have a thyroid issue, ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? And then go do more of that. There's no buts. It's your life. Now, to get really practical, I would also say that seaweed, which is very high in iodine, can also be very helpful for a hypothyroid. Now, you need to be more careful with a hyper. And that's the tricky part. So I like to do it slow. I like to do it naturally. I like to use some herbs. Mostly I like to go high fruit, high water fruit. Why? Because I want the lymphatic system to start pulling and cleansing and getting energy, oxygen, and vitality back to every cell, every organ, and every gland. Because behind every issue, there are the major two things that I see. Number one, there's a gland that is connected to an emotion. And emotions are connected to what we've lived and everything we take with us, everything we carry in form of traumas, thoughts, beliefs, and most of the time, we don't even know what we believe. And that's where we get thrown off, because we might think that we believe one thing. Well, our life might be showing us something else, that we don't believe in that. Because you know what? We live what we believe. Isn't that interesting? And I've said this before. I can tell people, you need to love yourself more. We're going to work on self-love. And they're like, I love myself. I really love myself. I do love myself. I'm like, no, you don't. Yeah, I do. Well, not really. Yeah. Well, your life is not showing us that you love yourself. Because a person who loves themselves will set boundaries and live their own life. And this is the connection with your thyroid. So I hope this was helpful. And don't get discouraged. You just start at one end. You can always do something about your diet. And there are several other tools you can use. You can go to my video called Cutting the Cords. That is really, truly helpful. I've had a lot of testimonials come in lately about that video and about that practice. Now, if you want, you can go to inspiredbyhilde.com, go to my blog. I also wrote that same thing out as an article. If that is better for you to read it and read it again, maybe you want to print it. Really, really helpful when it comes to the thyroid. And then, there are links below. If you want to contact me, please contact me. If you have questions or anything else, comments, please put them below. I really love speaking to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time soon. Bye for now.